Now, today is World Suicide Prevention Day, a day dedicated to raising awareness of the risks of suicide and the challenges faced when trying to stop people from taking their own lives. For more on this, I'm joined in the studio by Christo from Westhuizen, a psychologist and life coach. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Tommy.
Now, how prevalent is suicide, and have we found out the reasons why people find themselves in a position where they feel that the only way out is to kill themselves?
Yeah, Tommy, I think we need to zoom out a little bit. Suicide is incredibly prevalent, and it's one of the very unfortunate outcomes of a huge disease called depression. Now, a couple of years back, I heard stats about depression, that depression is going to overtake the HIV stats. And it's actually happened, and it's as bad as that roughly 1 in 4 people globally suffer from depression, and suicide is one of the unfortunate outcomes of depression. Now, depression is caused by too much stress for too long, and if I don't resolve the stress, I'm not fighting or I'm not running towards something, I'm not getting rid of it, it accumulates inside, causes a chemical imbalance, and if that goes far enough, my body can't rectify it by itself anymore, and then suicide ideation and wishes of death and so on becomes more and more prominent unless it is curbed or stopped. So, unfortunately, there is a suicide attempt roughly every 26 seconds in South Africa.
Oh, those are very high statistics.
Very, very high. So I grab every opportunity to just spread the news. Let's become aware, let's do something about it.
So basically, from your definition of what the causes of suicide are, it seems to me that we really ought to be looking at depression, because if one is then able to curb depression and one is able to give people better coping skills, then they won't find themselves in a situation where they feel the only way out is to take their lives.
That would be the ideal. I think one of the big things with depression is it's a very silent disease. People don't talk about it. And so we almost need to be made aware as to what to look for in the people around us.
And what do we look for? What should we be looking for?
So we would look at things like a change in behavior. Someone becomes less and less present. Some people it would go as far as people would start handing back things that they've borrowed from you. They would say goodbye in an unusually intense way, for example. They would express death wishes. I wish I could die, or I wish I was never born, or life is just unbearable, I don't want to be here anymore. It's often just like said in passing, but if we miss those cues, we actually allowing more suicides to happen than I think should be.
How does one deal with the threat of suicide in a world that has now been so engrossed in social media? And you'll go on social media platforms and people use it as a way of expressing themselves as well. You'll hear somebody, talking about their problems, saying how depressed they are, that they can't deal with this anymore. How does one pick up those cues and is then able to assist in a constructive way to somebody who really is a stranger, but they've decided to open up for whatever reason?
The most important thing, I think, is that we need to take care of ourselves, because you won't be able to pick up the cues in others and you won't be able to help someone if you're not relatively okay. So I think each one, the big message is take care of yourself and become aware of yourself and what's not okay. And then the big message is ask for help. Just ask for help. So if you see someone that you might not know that well, looking like they're going to commit suicide, like on posts or whatever, is to maybe just connect and say, are you okay? Is there anything I can do?
Because maybe sometimes all they need is somebody to talk to, not necessarily even solutions to their problems.
Tommy, that's exactly it. Trouble shared is trouble halved. But if there's no one who's interested in the first place, if there's no one who's got a listening ear, if no one has the capacity to listen, it's going to happen. Suicide's going to happen. So trouble shared is trouble halved. Let's give each other that gift. That's what I really believe.
And what about children? Now we're also hearing reports of children who are in primary school or even tertiary school or secondary school who are now committing suicide. How do parents pick up on those possible behavior patterns?
Right. Again, changes in behavior, a lot of withdrawal, a lot of aggression, Sometimes with school-going kids, a very good ballpark that's not very well known in terms of a cue of trouble is, or emotional trouble, is if a child's math mark suddenly drops by 10% or more from one term to the next. Because you can't do maths if you're not okay emotionally, because it requires a lot of concentration. It's just a nice ballpark.
Well, that's an interesting one.
It is an interesting one, and it's often true. So just pay attention. It's often not laziness. It's often a matter of not being okay emotionally.
And I guess bullying as well at schools is also a huge issue.
Huge. Bullying, and then the stuff we've been listening to in the last weeks about in Women's Month and all the violence in our society, the unsafety generally in our country as a whole. So we almost have a bigger responsibility, a reason to live, to look out for each other and to actually be there for each other. Just a listening ear is often what's needed.
On a lifestyle level,
yes.
What kind of tips or advice would you give to the general South African or the general individual on how to position themselves that they're not in depression, but that they're actually in touch with their own emotions and feelings?
Yes. So look at things like the level of enjoyment of things that you're not enjoying things nearly as much as you used to. Look at your levels of concentration. Look at if that goes down, some of those could be signs of depression. If you look at your weight, sudden weight gain or weight loss that goes into that field as well as a symptom of depression. The thing with depression is that self-care drops away because the small important things become almost insignificant because now it's about life or death. So I don't care about what I eat, I don't care about looking after myself. And I'm talking about things like diet, like exercise, like your sleep patterns. Are you getting enough of all of that? Is your balance wheel, is it balanced? The basic things that I need to be okay. So the physical would be things like diet, exercise, and sleep. Do I get enough rest? Do I relax enough? And then social interaction is quite an important thing, which really disappears often when there's depression, because depression and anxiety go hand in hand, and people tend to withdraw significantly when those become more prevalent. So have I got significant and meaningful relationships where we relate and we connect, and where there's a flow, a reciprocal kind of flow of meaningful, important life things.
And I guess one has to take the time to build those type of relationships.
Yes.
It certainly is too late to start finding people that you can, talk to in a confidential way if you haven't actually invested that time beforehand.
Yes.
And with the stress levels and how hard people are working now, how do you build those relationships?
Yes. When you suspect that someone's not okay or when you're not okay, do what is almost counterintuitive. You want to withdraw, you're embarrassed, you feel almost dysfunctional at stages. Pick up the phone and call a helpline. Just make that call and determine that you're not going to stop asking until you find the right person who understands. And then start walking a road with someone. Sometimes it will be a counselor, sometimes it will just be a friend, a relative, sometimes it will be an online forum where you can log in and just bounce things off. You just need to connect. It's the absence of connection. It's that oxygen of life that we go blue in the face without it being visible, and then the next thing is death seems more attractive than life.
It's so important what you've said, the fact that just because you don't have those personal relationships, it doesn't mean that nobody is there.
Absolutely.
You can pick up a helpline. It can be completely anonymous,
Absolutely.
but just let it out and speak.
That's it.
But as we round off, for this afternoon, how aware are we as South Africans on issues of mental health, and perhaps what do we mean by mental health?
Yeah. I think mental health, one of the things that come to mind would be the way you experience life. What is the quality of your experience of life? And then, sad to say, with depression being 1 in every 4 people, with stress levels as they are, we really have a massive responsibility towards ourselves and others to become very intentional in our relationships, in our self-care. We need to find reasons to live. We need to find our niche where we make a difference, where we find meaning in life.
And I guess something that gives you hope, whatever your faith
Absolutely.
may be, something
Yes.
that helps you to believe
Yes.
in something.
Absolutely. So you need the wall that approaches when depression comes on. Eventually you can't see anything and then death is the next thing, is to move that wall and find something beyond that you can look forward to and that you can live towards.
Well, thank you so much
Okay.
for your time this afternoon. Certainly some very handy tips that each and every single one of us can use. That's Christo van Westhuizen, a psychologist and life coach, as we focus on suicide globally.